All right, hello everyone. Welcome back. It's that time of the week. It's time for some more ERA, and today it's going to be the season opener for season 2. Today we arrive at Saudi Arabia here, or Jeddah here in Saudi Arabia, for the first round of ERA's second season, and it's definitely going to be an exciting race and season as a whole. And we have some returning drivers from last season, and we also have new drivers for this season, as well as a couple of reserves. So obviously, Chronic won the World Championship in the last season, and he is going to be the reigning champion coming into season 2. And it's going to be big expectations on his shoulders, but we'll have to see how every other driver does as well, because we definitely have a lot of new faces. We have a lot of old faces as well from last season, such as Litru Siggins, who is now driving in that Alfa Romeo instead of the Mercedes. But a couple of the new drivers are Dus Vessel is a reserve, Crutch Boy is a reserve, the Don is a new full-time driver for AlphaTauri. The Toe is a new reserve in this league, and Leighton and Zayek are two more of the new full-time drivers for this season. So it's going to be exciting to see how they do this season. And remember, if you want to sign up for ERA and join us in this second season, be sure to go down into the link into the description below. And if you want to see more of the ERA races live, be sure to subscribe and like the video. But moving on with qualifying, it looks like Litru Siggins is the first person who is going to set a lap time here around the Jeddah circuit, and we're going to have to see how he does in his Alfa Romeo and in his new team. And we're now just going through the first couple of corners into a lot of high-speed corners around here, as this track was kind of intended for a lot of high-speed corners. So it's definitely a very high downforce track, and definitely has some straight line speed aspects to it too. So it's going to be interesting to see the overtaking around this track and how all the drivers filter out in the end, and will they be able to make a lot of overtakes, because there's a lot of high-speed corners which are very hard to go side-by-side into, but there's also 3 DRS zones, if I'm not mistaken, so there should hopefully be a lot of overtaking opportunities as we're going through into the final sector now, as Litru Siggins sets a purple sector because he did set the first sector 2 in this session. Now got the DRS wide open, coming down to the final corner, which will then be met by another DRS zone on the pitch straight. And let's see what kind of time is it going to be for literally seconds, and it doesn't look like it was the fastest time. It was a 29 flat, and that is going to be the time for everyone else to beat. And I'm not saying that's not the fastest time. It's just that I'm used to playing TT around this track, which the conditions are a lot faster in time trial than they are in qualifying. As we now see Samuel Beach, who's in the Mercedes this season, where literally Siggins was last season, sets a 28.9. T FIFA and the McLaren is able to set a 28.6 and takes provisional pole for now, but still plenty of drivers still to set a lap time in this session, one of which the reigning champion Chronic has just started his lap time and is going through the first couple of corners. And let's see how he does on this lap, and how fast can he go compared to everyone else. And XD Paco is with us once again this season, Chronic's old rival from last season. We'll have to see if these two are going to go head to head for the championship once again, and going through this very long and high speed left-hander takes that quite nicely, getting nice and close to the barriers on exit. And now into this little chicane here. Very tricky to get the track limits right on the left-hand side and not to spin the car on that curb. Now we are going into the final sector. It doesn't look like a purple sector 2 from Chronic, as Seb actually sets a 27.5, 1.1 seconds faster than T FIFA's 28.6 in that Aston Martin. So that was a good lap from him, 27.5, that's a really good lap from him. We'll see if Chronic or anyone else can beat it, as Chronic now comes onto the pit straight with the DRS wide open. What kind of time is it going to be for Chronic? It's going to be a 127.8, so just 0.3 off of Seb's 27.5, and that's a pretty decent banker time from Chronic there. It looks like the Don is currently on a lap time in his AlphaTauri. As you can see, this is definitely quite a tricky track for a controller player. As you can see there, really struggling to line up the car with these high-speed corners, and he's actually invalidated his lap time, so he's either going to have to come into the pit lane or try and go for another lap, as it looks like Dust Vessel in that AlphaTauri as well, the Don's teammate for this race, just set a 27.6, which puts him on the provisional front row, and that's a pretty decent time from him, and on 2-lap-old soft compound tires as well, as I think he invalidated his first time as the Don comes into the pit lane here. Looks like Leighton is currently on his outlap along with Zayek, and Zayek and Leighton, a lot of drivers haven't actually set a lap time yet, and just 11 minutes left to go in the session. They're going to be wanting to get a representative time in soon enough, and looks like Chronic giving his teammate a bit of slipstream here on this DRS straight, but it is just Zayek's outlap, so that's not going to improve his lap time. But now coming around the final corner and about to start his lap, so let's see how fast he can go for his first time of the session in that Scarlet Ferrari alongside the reigning world champion Chronic. Now let's go down to the turn 1 and turn 2 chicane, managing to take that quite nicely into turn 3, and now coming up to turn 4. Let's see how he can take this, braking at the 50-meter board, taking as much curb as possible. Looked like a little bit of a slide there from Zayek, goes out quite wide there, misses the apex on the left-hand side there, and really struggled for grip going into there after the slide out of the previous corner. Now coming into the middle sector, this very long left-hander, which you tend to take in fourth gear. Looks like a bit too early on the power there, and looks like he's made contact with the wall. Has he gotten himself wing damage? We'll have to see from this off-board camera. And yeah, it looks like he has got wing damage on that right end plate, and that's going to force him to abandon this lap. But it does look like Leighton is currently on a lap time in his blue Alpine. Looks like he just set a purple sector 1, so looking like a good lap so far. But let's see if he can continue this momentum going through the other 2/3 of this track. And looks like he's just about to finish up his middle sector now. Is it a purple sector? Yes, it is. So 2 purple sectors so far. Now coming into the final sector, getting nice and close to the wall there on the left-hand side, and onto this DRS back straight before we get on to the main pit straight to end off the lap time. And coming into this final corner, how close does he get to the wall? Looks like doesn't want to get too close, doesn't want to test his luck. So just going to take a little bit of curb going into that turn across the line to 28.1. And that is going to put him P4 in this session, and 7 tenths off of, or 6 tenths off of Seb's provisional pole time of a 27.5. Looks like T FIFA is currently on a lap time. His teammate getting out of his way as he comes into the final sector, getting really close to the wall there, really pushing the limits of this track onto the back straight now with the DRS wide open as he approaches the final turn to end off this lap time. And let's see how fast he can go compared to his rivals. It's going to be interesting to see, as it looks like H actually sets a 27.8 in that Haas car this season, and T FIFA sets a 28 flat, and that puts him P5 in the session. Definitely a decent lap from him. Samuel Beach is about to finish up his lap time. What kind of time is it going to be from him as he rounds out the final turn? Currently P7 with a 28.9. I think he might have made a mistake on that lap, as it's not the fastest time, but it looks like he sets a 28.6 and goes 3 tenths faster. Doesn't improve his position, still 5 tenths off of Leighton's 28.1, who currently sits P6 in this session. A lot of people still haven't set a lap time yet. One of the drivers who haven't set a lap time yet is the Don, negotiating his way through the first sector, now coming into the second sector. I can't tell if this is just his car moving side to side so much. I can't tell if that's just him being a controller player or if that is lag. I'm really not sure, but looks like making his way through these very high-speed corners. Got really close to the wall there on that right-hand turn. So really pushing the track limits, as you really have to do around here at Jeddah if you want to get the fastest lap time possible. Now coming into the final sector, looks like he misses that apex, goes wide, but it looks like he's able to keep the time valid as just squeezes past H there. I was very close to contact. Thankfully makes it out alive, and is about to come into the final turn and end off his lap time. Gets nice and close to the wall there and on the right hand side. Thankfully does not pull a Max Verstappen and is able to keep it on the road. What kind of time is it going to be for him? It looks like a 30.6, so it looked like he missed a few apexes in the final sector, and that might have cost him his lap time, and that's why he's down in P14 with a 30.6. Zayek, who's right behind him, hasn't set a lap time yet in that Ferrari with just 6 minutes to go. He really wants to be getting a lap time on the board, and let's see what his first hopefully valid lap time is going to be, as it looks like he just gets a bit too up on the curb there, and that invalidates his lap time. So once again looks like he invalidates his lap time, and actually hits into the wall as well, so he's going to have to pit for a new front wing. I think that's what he did on the last lap as well. So he's now going to have to come to pit lane. He only has 5 minutes and a half left, so he really wants to be getting a lap time in as soon as possible. Looks like Seb might be on a lap here. No, it does not look like he's using any of his ERS, so he's not currently on a lap time. Dust Vessel still on provisional front row with H right behind him and Chronic in P4. Looks like literally Siggins is currently on an out lap, and let's see how fast he's able to go on his next lap. His fastest time so far is a 29 flat, which currently puts him at P9 in this session, but he's almost a full second off of P7, which goes to Paco, who's right behind his teammate Leighton. Just 2 100ths separate the two Alpine drivers who are going to be driving with each other for the rest of the season. So maybe we'll see some close competition from them, like we saw from AlphaTauri at the second half of the last season. And literally Siggins just started his lap, coming into turn 4 now. Doesn't look like he took that much curb there, playing it a bit cautious. into turn 6, and now the double left-hander of turn 7, which then turns into the double right-hander of turn 8 and 9 into turn 10, and now coming up to the long left-hander of turn 11. Let's see how well he can take this. Currently 2/10 up on his previous best, and it looks like he got on the power a bit too early there, and had to let off if he didn't want to hit into the wall. Still continuing this lap time, still pretty decent so far, but it looks like just pushing the limits too hard there. Got up on the curb, and that has invalidated this lap time for Litchy Siggins, and he's either going to have to go for another lap or come into the pit lane. Looks like his teammate also invalidating his lap time, and has only managed a 30.4 so far, currently down in P13. Looks like Leighton and Zayek are both on their out laps, just came out of the pit lane for what is essentially going to be their final lap time of the session with just 3 minutes to go. And we're going to ride on board with Zayek. Hopefully he can get a valid lap time in before the end of the session, because he does not want to be qualifying at the back of the grid here at Jeddah. Although it could be an advantage, because there's a very high chance of absolute carnage down at turn 1, as it's a very tight chicane with not a lot of space to be given. So we'll have to see how that plays out on lap 1 of tonight's race. But Zayek now coming into the final sector and about to finish off his out lap, and ready to start his final lap of the session. And let's see how it goes. And apparently I've just heard from Zayek himself and also Coulter now mentioning it again. It's going to be a full wet race, so it's going to be very tricky conditions for the driver, and might even make turn 1 that much more chaotic. We're now riding on board with Zayek coming into the turn 1 and turn 2 chicane, and manages to take that pretty nicely. Doesn't take as much curb at turn 1. Now coming into turn 4, it looks like he takes too much curb there, and he's actually hit the wall and invalidated his lap time. He's going to have to hope that he doesn't have wing damage, so that he can possibly get around the track one more time to start his another lap time. But that might be Zayek's qualifying session over. We ride on board with Leighton, who's currently on his final lap of the session in that Alpine, taking that first sector very, very nicely, 1.5 tenths up on his time. Now coming into turn 11, very long left-hander that taken in 4th gear, a very difficult corner to take, and very difficult to get on the power for the exit, because you don't want to hit into the barrier, spin the wheels. But it looks like a mistake there from Leighton. Just gets on the curb a bit too much there, and that's actually caused him to lose his front wing. His teammate Paco right behind him, currently on a lap time, and let's see what his teammate could do. He couldn't, and how fast can Paco go, as I think that's going to be Leighton's session over. Just got a bit too much curb on the left-hander, and that sent him into the wall. Paco getting a nice bit of slipstream from Litchy Siggins, having to dodge all of this traffic. His teammate giving him a little bit of slipstream for the final turn, and then getting out of the way. So Paco got a nice bit of slipstream on that back straight. And what kind of time is it going to be across the line? It's going to be a 1:27.8. That promotes him to P4 in this session, and that's a pretty decent position from him so far. So it looks like Crutch Boy actually gets a 5-place grid penalty for a collision with Dexy, and that's really going to hurt him and his qualifying session, although it might only just put him down to P15, as Zayek in the end couldn't get a proper lap time in. But it looks like Seb has invalidated at turn 2, and that is going to be his qualifying session over. And this gives a big opportunity to Dus Bessler, who's also had to abandon his lap time. H has abandoned his lap time. Paco has invalidated his lap, and it looks like Chronic is the last person who's currently on a lap, as the top 4 are all done with this qualifying session. And it looks like Chronic is currently on a lap, and let's see what he can do with his 27.8 so far. How much can he improve by taking a lot of curb there on that last left-hander, really pushing the limits. as you see Dust Vessel pulled over to the left-hand side there to retire from the session. It looks like Chronic is only 7/1000ths up on his time, coming out of the middle sector, really pushing the limits there, almost invalidating his lap time on that right-hander. Gets a little bit of slipstream off of Crutch Boy, and is now about to come into the final turn. Hopefully H getting really close to the racing line there. Chronic lucky to avoid that collision, and Chronic across the line. It didn't look like a massive improvement, and it does not look like he was improving, and that is going to be his qualifying session over, with his best time being at 27.8. It looks like T FIFA is currently on a lap as Paco gets out of his way. T FIFA now on the pit straight, about to finish his last lap time, and what kind of time is it going to be for him as he almost invalidates there and hits the wall, almost hits the wall on the left hand side. It looks like he can't improve on his 28 flat, and it looks like everyone has finished their qualifying session, and that is going to be it. It looks like Seb starts on pole position here at Jeddah with a 27.5, and I'm sure he'll be looking forward to this race, starting on pole in the wet, and hopefully there isn't too much chaos down at turn 1 with this full wet race, but I'm sure there might be a few retirements in the early stages, as Saudi Arabia obviously being a very hot country, you don't usually see rain around this track. So it's going to be interesting to see how the drivers deal with it. Dust Vessel just 6/100ths off of Seb's pole time. So close to getting that pole position, but he will be starting on the front row for AlphaTauri. H is going to be starting P3 in that Haskar. A good start to his season so far. Paco starting ahead of last season's rival by just 11/1000ths of a second. Very, very close between those two drivers. T FIFA and Leighton will be starting on the third row of the grid, with Samuel Beach and the tow right behind them on the fourth row. Dexy and Coulter starting on the fifth row. Crutch Boy and the Don starting on the sixth row. And although Crutch Boy will be starting at the back of the grid after that 5th-place grid penalty, and Zayak, who couldn't get a time in, will be starting from P14 on the grid. And I definitely think this is going to be an exciting race, so let's see how it goes. As you can see, full wet conditions here. It is raining, but we'll have to see if it's going to be time for the inters or the full wets. That's definitely going to be interesting to see, because I think the full wets would be a lot harder to use around this track. So hopefully, for the driver's sake, it's not full wet conditions, although it doesn't look like there's any puddles in the pit lanes. So that might mean that it is intermediate conditions, but we'll have to see as the drivers getting onto the grid to start their formation lap. And yeah, Seb starting on pole in that Aston Martin. I'm sure he'll be happy with that performance, and hopefully he can get away quite nicely off of the start. But I think a lot of drivers are really going to struggle for traction off the line. As you can see there, Seb starting on the intermediate compound of tires, and so does everyone else in the grid. So strategy might not really come into play here, because it might just be a one stop from the intermediates to the intermediates, but we might see the rain get heavier, we might see the rain get lighter. We'll have to see how it all plays out. So like I said, Seb in that Aston Martin this season starts on pole position, with Deuce Vessel, the AlphaTauri driver, starting right behind him in P2. H starts P3 in that Haskar for his first race this season, with Paco starting P4 for Alpine, right ahead of his last season's championship rival Chronic. And T FIFA in the McLaren, the lead McLaren driver so far, after his teammate not being able to make this race, so the tow will be filling in for McLaren. He starts P9. Leighton starts P7. And Samuel Beach in P8. Doesn't look like the best day for Mercedes, qualifying P8 and P11. And it doesn't look like the best day for Alfa Romeo either. They qualified P10 and P15. I'm sure they're not going to be too happy with that one. Seb's teammate Coulter starting all the way down in P12, and Dust Vessel's teammate The Don starting in P13, and Zayek, who couldn't get a proper lap in, is going to be starting towards the back of the grid in P14. And as you can see there, it looks like The Don might have made a mistake because he was behind Crush Boy. Zayek and Dexy actually get disqualified from the formation lap, so their tires are going to be quite cold coming onto the starting grid. Hopefully that doesn't affect their start too much, because they're really going to want to get good traction off of the line, because that is going to be key, and keeping yourself out of trouble coming into turn 1 and 2. But let's see how it all plays out, as Seb is coming onto the grid now, and is going to be waiting for the rest of the drivers to line up on the grid, and getting ready to start this season opener. And it's going to be an exciting one, and I hope you all enjoy. So it looks like a lot of drivers are definitely going to struggle in these wet conditions, if I had to guess, because especially at a track like this where rain isn't as common here in Saudi Arabia on this coastal track. But yeah, it looks like Zayek, that's one of the Ferraris who was quite far back. It looks like Chronic for some reason was quite far back, now lining up onto the grid and getting ready to start this Grand Prix, and to get it underway, this 25 lap Grand Prix here at Saudi Arabia. And let's see how it goes. And we have 3, 4, 5 red lights. They're gone, we're away. What kind of start is it for Seb, our pole man today? It looks like not the best, as Seb, or Dust Vessel, is able to go down the inside into turn 1, and can he hold it around the outside for turn 2? Coming into turn 3, has the inside line on Seb, and it looks like he's able to get ahead, but Seb isn't going to give this. It looks like he does give that position up, and bumps Dust Vessel going through turn 5 there, giving him a little nudge going into the corner. So Dust Vessel gets a great start, moving from P2 to P1 in a matter of 5 turns, and I'm sure he'll be very happy with that start. Seb moving down to P2. Paco is able to get himself up into P3. T-FIFA moves up a few positions up into P4. Chronic maintains P5. Samuel Beach moving up to P6. Coulter moving all the way from P12 to P7, and that's a good start from him, as Seb is getting really close to the back, as Dust Vessel makes a mistake there and almost ends his race completely. And it looks like Paco actually made contact there, wasn't able to predict where Dust Vessel was going to go, who has a damaged front wing, and has now given Paco a damaged front wing, if I'm not mistaken. So they're both going to have to box for new front wings, or maybe Paco has escaped with no wing damage, but Dust Vessel definitely has wing damage, as you can see. Or maybe he doesn't, I can't tell there. The car is going by so quickly around these high-speed corners at Saudi Arabia. But as you can see there, it looks like both of his end plates are intact, but it looks like a little bit of damage to the right end plate. And let's see who comes into pit lane. It doesn't look like anyone comes into pit lane. It does look like something went flying in the background. Not sure if that was a braking board or a bit of front wing, as it looks like Paco now tries to go around the outside of his last year's championship rival Chronic into turn 1, and is able to get that move done, and gets P4 in this race. So far no one came in at the end of lap 1 apart from H, who fell all the way from P3. Didn't even notice him, but he is in the pit lane. He must have gotten wing damage at an early point in the lap, and that sadly means he has to box for a new front wing, and so does the toe in that McLaren. Definitely not the way to start his first race in ERA, but it looks like the predicted pit stop strategy is actually a 0 stop in this race, so the intermediates can go to the very end. So it's going to be about flat out racing for this entire race, as the game predicts that you won't have to make a pit stop. So Seb leads this race from Dust Vessel, who made a mistake in the middle sector, almost cost him his race, but is still going, as T-FIFA is up into the podium positions after starting what was P6 in this race. That's a really good start from him. Another good start from Coulter as well, moving from all the way from P12 to P7, but now it might be P6 as he makes his way past Samuel Beach and Leighton trying to get in the battle as well. It looks like Leighton, it looks like it might be 3 wide going into this final turn. Leighton tries to turn in, and it looks like they make contact. Samuel Beach making contact with Coulter, Leighton making contact with Coulter as well, and looks like Coulter got sandwiched in the middle there. It looks like Samuel Beach is coming into pit lane, and I think that might be because he has wing damage. It's H actually DNFs from the session in the third sector, and that brings out the virtual safety car. So thankfully Samuel Beach won't lose as much time from this front wing change, but will still lose quite a few seconds from the guys he was battling before. So it looks like Dust Vessel has actually gotten into the lead of the Grand Prix. Seb must have made a mistake somewhere in the last lap, because Dust Vessel has been able to get the lead from him, or maybe Dust Vessel has really good pace. I wasn't watching because we were watching the battle between Coulter, Samuel Beach and Leighton. T-FIFA maintains P3 with Paco and Chronic right behind him. 2.3 seconds off now, quite a bit off is Leighton in that Alpine with Coulter right behind him, who I don't think has wing damage, otherwise he most likely would have came in to the pit lane. Literally Siggins moving up 2 positions from his starting place as P10. Dexy moving from P11 to P9. Zayek moves from P14 to P10 with Crutchboy following him through the entire grid, but it looks like Crutchboy has actually disconnected from the session there. So Crutchboy is no longer in this race, as Samuel Beach and the Toe, who both sadly had to boxes, were actually back under racing conditions. And it looks like Paco has made a mistake, and he is now dropped all the way down to P11. So must have been a mistake there on the safety car restart, and that's really cost him. Has he got wing damage is the question that I'm asking. And is he going to come into the pit lane? Looked like he didn't have too much understeer coming into that final turn. It does not look like he's going to come into the pit lane. So thankfully he doesn't have wing damage, but that's lost him a lot of time. Zaya getting quite close to the back of Dexy, and T-FIFA doing the same to Seb. As looks like Dust Vessel really starting to pull away from Seb here. Really good in these wet conditions. And as you can see, he's already built a 2 behind. Has Seb got some sort of wing damage, and that's why he's struggling so much for pace, as it looks like T-FIFA trying to make a move on him, can't quite make it, and it looks like he's got a little bit of damage on both of his end plates, so that's visible damage, but is it going to affect the performance of his car? As we come into here, yeah, it looks like going really slow, takes third gear and gets a track limits warning. And it looks like Seb isn't coming into the pit lane for a new front wing, as he's definitely damaged that front wing, and T-FIFA desperately trying to find a way past, isn't going to be able to make his way past coming into the third sector. And there's going to be no DRS here in the wet conditions. It looks like T-FIFA almost has a 100% DRS. He's going to use some of it coming into the final turn, and it looks like he's going to be able to go down the inside into the final turn, and Seb with that wing damage is not able to defend, and it looks like Seb is either going to have to come into the pit lane or suffer for the rest of the race. And as you can see, pulls to the left and comes into the pit lane for a new front wing. That's a shame to see, as that is going to put him in an entire pit stop behind the rest of the grid. It looks like Dexy and Paco battling it away. It looks like Paco trying to make his way back through the grid to try and get back and fighting at the top, and he has the inside line before turn 1, but it looks like Zayek has trying to take this opportunity as it offsets Dexy's line, and tries to go around the outside into turn 4. The Don trying to get into the battle too. It looks like Zayek has messed up that corner, and as is going to have to let Dexy through, but it looks like he's lost his entire front wing there, and it looks like a big mistake, and he went wide off the track, tried to come back onto the track, but just carried too much speed and has lost his entire front wing. He's going to have to come into pit lane to get that repaired, and it looks like that he is the 4th driver today who's going to have to come in for a new front wing. That just leaves 10 people who still haven't broken their wing. 9 if you exclude Crutch Boy's AI car. And looks like Dexy has actually gotten a 3-second time penalty, so struggling with the track limits. And Paco trying to move his way up the grid, and while they were all battling away, he was able to pull out a 2.5 second gap on Dexy behind, and is now chasing down literally Siggins in this Grand Prix. Coulter, who started P12, has moved all the way up to P5 in this Grand Prix. So a really good race so far from Coulter there, and he is going to have to do the point scoring for Aston Martin after Seb unfortunately losing parts of his front wing and damaging it to the point where he had to come into the pit lane. T-FIFA has actually started to pull away from Chronic now as a 1.2 second gap has just formed, and it looks like T-FIFA might try and catch up to Dust Vessel, who's had some great pace this entire race. He actually sets a purple first sector, and I guess that just reinforces the idea that he's got great pace in the wet here around Jeddah. So he's just pulling away from T-FIFA, and this could be a dominant victory from the reserve driver of Dust Vessel. And we'll have to see if he will get promoted to a full-time driver for AlphaTauri. We'll have to see. As you can see here, getting a nice helicopter shot. As you can see, those rain droplets coming down onto the track, and really treacherous conditions. As you can see there, Dust Vessel really pushing the track limits and pushing them too far, it seems, as he is another person who has lost his front wing. He is going to have to come into the pit lane to get that repaired. And I saw that he was pushing the track limits there, and I thought that was just him trying to gain as much lap time as possible. But it looks like a mistake coming into the third sector. He's now going to have to box for a new front wing, which is going to promote T-FIFA into the lead in this Grand Prix. And let's see if he can try and go for the win here in the season opener for ERA's Season 2. But he will have a lot of pressure from Chronic behind, who's looking to chase down another championship in ERA. And I think a good way to start off his championship campaign would be to win the season opener. Leighton, who's a new driver here in ERA, is already on the podium just by staying out of trouble in the first few laps, is now on the podium. And Coulter started P12, now up to P4 by doing the exact same. So it's been a really good race from Coulter so far. He's got Paco right behind him. He's actually made his way past literally Siggins, and is on an absolute charge to try and get back and fighting for the podium in this Grand Prix. As you can see, pushing really hard. Dust Vessel trying to move back up the grid as he overtakes the AI car of Crutch Boy, and is now coming up on the back of his teammate, and it looks like he's going to be able to get that move done on his teammate and move up into P8. And let's see if he can recover a decent amount of points in this race, as it looks like he makes a mistake at the exact same corner, and that is going to force him to retire from this Grand Prix. And as you can see, his car is on the racing line, and that is going to have to bring out the safety car, as it looks like really struggling at that corner, and that's the second time he spun, but this time it's going to lead to a DNF in this Grand Prix. A shame to see from the man who started on the front row and was looking to easily win this race, but that shows you how quickly it can go from bad to worse for Dust Vessel. Zayek, who's currently P14 and lost his front wing in the early stages of this Grand Prix, is now going to be able to catch up to the back of the leaders and possibly fight for some points in this Grand Prix, as we now have T-FIFA leading the Grand Prix. I'm sure he wouldn't have wanted this, because this has allowed Leighton and the rest of the grid to catch up and start to compete for the victory here at Jeddah. So Leighton's going to be able to catch up to the top two. Coulter is going to be able to catch up. Paco, this has been a real saving grace here for Paco, who's been absolutely charging for the last few laps. He's now here at the front of the grid in the top 5 and will be battling it out for the win here at Jeddah. Literally Siggins currently P6 for Alfa Romeo, Dexy in P7 with a 3-second time penalty. Seb, the man who started on pole, down in P8 after breaking his front wing and getting himself a 3-second time penalty. The AI car of Crutch Boy in P9, Samuel Beach in P10, the tow, his first race here in ERA, not going too well so far, as he's got 6 seconds of penalties and is down in P11. The Don is going to be able to catch up in P12 for AlphaTauri, and he's going to be the only driver left in this race for AlphaTauri. And Zayek in P13 had to come in for a new front wing. He's going to have to push quite hard to actually catch up to the safety car and to the rest of the grid as well. And hopefully he'll be able to battle for points in this race after not having the best of starts in the early stages, losing his front wing after going off the track at this exact turn after trying to overtake Dexy in the Mercedes. So we're going to have to wait for Zayek to catch up to the rest of the field before we can get under green flag running, and these drivers are just going to try and keep their tires somewhat warm in these wet conditions. Very easy for the tires to cool down, so they'll be trying to swerve a bit to keep the tire temperatures up, but it looks like T-FIFA in his first race, well, not his first race in ERA, he's been around since season 1, but his first race in season 2, he might be looking at his very first Grand Prix victory here in ERA, and I'm sure he'd be absolutely delighted to see something like that. He, if I'm not mistaken, won a sprint race last season, but wasn't able to convert that into a Grand Prix victory, and it looks like today is the day that he tries to fight back and trying to get a win in ERA. Chronic in P2, obviously looking to battle for the championship once again, and he's going to want to win this Grand Prix to get a 25-point lead. Well, not a 25-point lead, but a decent lead on any other rival on the grid. But after this first race, it's really not evident who will be fighting for the championship. Obviously, H retiring in the early stages. Just Vessel did really well but retired. Seb started on pole but is down in P8, and the grid order is quite mixed up. So I think we'll have to wait a few more rounds to see who will be fighting for the championship. But one thing's for certain, the Paco, Coulter, Leighton, Chronic and T-FIFA will almost likely be battling it out for the win here at Jeddah. And Zayek still has to catch up to the rest of the grid before we can get ready for some more green flag running. And obviously he's quite a bit behind after having to box for a new front wing, and had to do almost an entire lap without a front wing after making that mistake in the first sector, and that's probably why he's lost so much time. But now pushing nice and hard to catch up to the rest of the field, and I think he'll be able to catch up on this lap, and the safety car will most likely come in at the end of lap 9, and we can get back under green flag running and continue on with this race. And it's definitely going to be an exciting battle between all of these drivers, as you can see, Zayek is on fresh intermediate compound of tires, with most people being on 9-lap-old tires. Some people decide to box for fresh intermediates, and some people had to box in the early stages, obviously after breaking their front wing. So most people on 9-lap-old intermediates. This could give Zayek a bit of an advantage over everyone else, but we'll have to see how that plays out, as coming through the first sector now, and just trying to catch up to the rest of the field. As it looks like makes a mistake in the same corner he lost his front wing on the exit of, and is probably the reason why he's down in P13. So just trying to push nice and hard to catch up to the rest of the grid so that we can get back under racing way. but it looks like he's going quite slowly, just cruising around the track, not really trying too hard to catch up to the rest of the grid. As you can see, they're taking it nice and slowly out of that turn. Doesn't want to spin. Obviously very hard to get any sort of traction coming out of there, and hopefully he can catch up to the back of the grid before the safety car comes in, which will most likely be at the end of this lap. So he really needs to pick up the pace here, as his Formula 1 car should be a lot faster than the Aston Martin safety car that's here with us today instead of the Mercedes. But yeah, it looks like the safety car is now in this lap. Zayek has caught up to the rest of the field down in P13, and FIFA will be leading us away for this safety car restart. As you can see, trying to keep his tires nice and warm before this restart, so he can get the best restart and jump possible on his new rival Chronic in this Grand Prix. And let's see if he can do just that. Trying to get the best exit off the last turn, but it doesn't look like he's going. But it looks like he's going now, even then in third gear, and moving up to fourth. He got a little bit of wheel spin out there, and it looks like Leighton has got a perfect safety car restart, and will be battling Chronic into turn 1. It looks like he's going to go for the outside line into turn 1. He can't make that move stick, and it looks like Coulter made a bit of contact with the back of Leighton there. Hopefully he doesn't have any wing damage, but Leighton getting very close to the back of Chronic, and should be looking for a move soon enough. Here in these treacherous wet conditions, it's definitely very difficult to overtake, especially without the DRS, as Zayek actually gets a 3-second time penalty for extending the track limits. But so far, none of the top 8 have swapped positions, but it looks like Dexy struggling a bit for pace, already outside his second gap. It looks like Seb almost taking that opportunity for Dexy's lack of pace around here to go for a move. But it looks like he's going to do that now, as he has the outside line for this right-hander. And can he make this move stick? It looks like he just about got it done before the braking zone, but he actually goes off of the track there. And this allows Dexy to get a better exit over Seb, but it looks like Dexy just didn't move to the right-hand side of the track there, and just hit into the back of Seb. This allows Dexy's teammate Samuel Beach to put some pressure on Seb, and it looks like Dexy might have wing damage because of that. So Seb now coming down the back straight is able to make a pass on Dexy, and yeah, I definitely think Dexy has some wing damage. He had some serious understeer coming into turn 3, but that's not going to stop him from trying to go down the inside into the last turn. But I don't think Seb is going to let that happen from a man who has a damaged front wing. XD Paco trying to move himself up the grid, up the order, and it looks like he's going to try and go around the outside of Coulter, who concedes that position. And Paco now staring at the back of his teammates Alpine, and let's see what he can do from that position, as it looks like Dexy has decided not to box for a new front wing, and is losing so much time in so many positions. As you can see, Zayek now overtaking him into turn 4. Thankfully this time doesn't lose his front wing, as Leighton now gets a 3-second time penalty for extending the track limit, and currently that would put him P6 or P5 in this race. Is literally Siggins also getting a 3-second time penalty, so it currently put him P5 in this race, and that's really not what he wants to see, as that's going to cost him a few positions and a chance at a podium in this Grand Prix. Seb getting quite close to the back of literally Siggins now, and let's see if he can make a move in the coming laps. It looks like he might go for the move now. He has the inside line for this next turn. It looks like he's going to be able to make the move before this next turn, this next left-hander, where you have to get very close to the wall. And as you can see, Seb is able to take so much more speed into that turn compared to literally Siggins. It might be a thing about confidence, where you obviously have to be a lot more confident in the wet to be faster. But as you can see now, Paco's starting to lose a little bit of time to his teammate ahead and the top 3, with FIFA leading that group away, doing quite a nice job from P1 in this Grand Prix. And he's going to continue to push on, and hopefully lead this Grand Prix for the next 12 laps as we actually reach the halfway point in this Grand Prix, as it looks like Dexy, who's finally come in to change his front wing, has got a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. And if there isn't any more safety cars, that might be his race over. So right now, a lot of the drivers just settling into each other's slipstream, not really making any moves. Paco is now caught up back into a 1-second time frame of his teammate ahead. Seb right behind his teammate Coulter, who looks like really struggling to keep up with the top four. As you can see, the gap is now 2.9 seconds between himself and the top four, and it looked like he might have actually just let his teammate go there, or might have made a mistake. I think he probably let his teammate go there, wants to score as many points as he can for Aston Martin, and I think he thinks the best way to do that is to let his teammate through there. Actually hits the wall. Hopefully he doesn't have wing damage. We'll be able to see at the end of this lap whether he comes into pit lane or not, but Seb is now unleashed to try and catch up to the top four. He has 5 lap fresher tyres, and hopefully that will give him an advantage. Chronic now getting very close to the back of T FIFA and is looking at the outside line for this final turn. Is he going to commit? And it looks like the answer is no. He's going to back out of that move and try to get a better exit as he actually pushes T FIFA through the corner there. It's very dangerous. You can definitely get wing damage from doing that, as trying to stay in the slipstream of T FIFA ahead of him, as Paco sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix right behind his teammate. Had a look down the inside, but it looks like Leighton broke a bit too late there coming into turn one. It's actually hit into the back of Chronic. Thankfully no big crashes in these wet conditions, and all 4 drivers still on track and battling it out for the win. It looks like a big mistake there from Chronic, and can Leighton take advantage of this? It does not look like he can. Didn't want to go side by side into that double left-hander, because it's very dangerous to go side by side into there. Very easy to cause a collision, as Coulter gets a 3-second time penalty. Seb slowly catching up to the back of these guys. Leighton goes to the outside, but that move is never going to work here at turn 11. It's a very, very long turn, and the outside line cannot carry as much speed going. Well, it can carry more speed, but the inside line is just so much tighter, and so much less road to travel, to cover even. So Chronic is going to maintain P2 for now. He's lost quite a bit of time to T FIFA ahead, and Leighton still has that 3-second time penalty, as Seb also has a 3-second time penalty, but is now caught up almost to the back of the top 4, and Chronic is also out of nowhere just pulled out a gained 4/10 on T FIFA, and is now back within a 1-second time frame. So looks like he's got some good pace here in the wet, and has actually broke away from 8/10 from Leighton behind. It looked like a mistake there from the Don, as we had yellow flags in the middle sector. And let's see how much understeer does he have into this final turn. Has he got wing damage? But it looks like Paco has actually made a move on Leighton before the braking zone, so using plenty of his ERS to get ahead of his teammate. And I think Paco is probably best off in that position. Without a 3-second time penalty, will most likely be able to score more points for Alpine. And Alpine have definitely got a very strong lineup with both of their drivers currently in the top 4, and one threatening to challenge for the win in this Grand Prix. We'll have to see how that goes, as he's going to have to push quite hard to get past both Chronic and T FIFA, but there's every chance they make a mistake here in these wet conditions at Jeddah, where it's definitely so easy to do so, and I'm sure a lot of these drivers will not be used to these conditions, but the top 4 obviously haven't made too many mistakes. Paco losing his wing earlier on in the race, but has managed to recover and get back up to P3 and on the podium positions, as Chronic, it looks like he's gaining a lot of time in the middle and final sector, as it looks like Zayek has actually spun in the middle sector there, a mistake coming out of the same turn as does Vessel DNF from. As you can see, they're really struggling to get out of that, and that is going to lose them a lot of time. But we now ride with Chronic who's getting very close to the back of Tififa. Paco putting him under some serious pressure. Could we see them go 3 wide into this turn? And it looks like we might not. Chronic tries to go around the outside. He has to back out of that movement. Goes for the switchback coming into turn 2, but took the outside line on both occasions and just didn't have enough grip to go around the outside on either one. But it looks like Zayak has actually DNF'd from the session, and that has brought out the full course safety car. And with just 10 laps to go, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not these drivers come into pit lane, because as we know from the game's predicted strategy, these intermediate compound tyres can go to the very end of the race from start to finish, but is the advantage of having 15 lap fresher intermediate tyres worth the pit stop? Because if they pit now, they might come out behind Mato, who's currently in P9. So we'll have to see what decisions these drivers make on their 15 lap old intermediate compound tyres. Tififa is going to have to be the first person to make a decision, and we'll see if the rest of the drivers follow him in or change up their strategy. As you can see, Paco just slowing down a bit. Doesn't want to be too close to Chronic, so he can see and take plenty of time to register their strategies, whether they come into pit lane, whether they stay out for a few more laps. It's going to be interesting to see what they choose. So we now come to the final turn. This is now the deciding moment. Are these drivers going to come into the pit lane, or are they going to stay out on their inters? It looks like Tififa has opted to stay out, and both the Alpines, like everyone, has decided to stay out on track, as like I said before, these intermediate compound tyres can go to the end of the Grand Prix, so no driver risking coming into the pit lane and losing track position over one another. And it's going to be interesting to see, can these drivers keep it out of the barriers for the final few laps. Obviously, we only have 9 more laps to go, but the safety car will be taking up quite a few of those laps as we wait for Dexy to catch up to the rest of the grid. Obviously, in last place after having an incident on the last safety car restart, and like I said, that would have been his race over if there wasn't another safety car. So we could see him possibly battling it out for some points in this Grand Prix, as you can see they're rounding out the final corner and coming onto lap 16, which I think might be a glitch, because it did say lap 17 before. Obviously I haven't been counting, I've just been relying on the counter, but it looks like the lap counter adjusts for the driver you're watching. So as you can see, it just went on to lap 17 as we were watching Dexy. But he's going to want to push decently hard to try and catch up to the safety car train, because if he can catch up this lap, I'm sure we'll come in, but I think he's a bit too far behind to actually catch up. And as we ride on board, is he pushing going into these turns? Is he trying to catch up? And it does not look like he is, just cruising with 5th gear in the first sector, and just taking it nice and easy on his tires. So hopefully he can catch up to the safety car at the end of lap 18, which would be the same lap the safety car comes in if he can catch up. But he's going to have to start pushing soon enough if he wants to get to that stage, as the safety car now crosses the line to start lap 18 in this race, and Dexy is only halfway through lap 17, so he's going to have to start pushing decently hard here under the safety car conditions to catch up to the safety car itself. And it looks like he boxed for fresh inters, so he's currently on fresh inters. Not sure why he boxed, possibly damaged his front wing, as you can see hitting the wall there in the final sector of lap 17, and is about to start his next lap of lap 18. And it looks like he's definitely en route to catch the safety car, hopefully by the end of lap 18. So yeah, we're gonna have a quick rundown of the grid and see where everyone's at strategy-wise and position-wise. So Team FIFA currently leads this Grand Prix and has been able to fend off Chronic for the past couple of laps. So he's put up a decent defense and might be looking good for a race win here, but Chronic is definitely going to push him to the limit, and Paco, Chronic's old rival, is right there in P3 for Alpine. The top three are the only drivers without penalties, and then you have Leighton, Seb, Coulter, Literally Siggins and Samuel Beach, all with 3-second time penalties, so they'll all be scrapping out for track position. The Toe has 9 seconds of time penalty, so he's really going to struggle for any points in this race. The Don has 3 seconds, so that will promote him up 2 positions, since Crush Boy will be disqualified for obviously disconnecting. And Dexy with 6 seconds now catching up to the back of the grid. It looks like he might just pick up the final point in this race, or possibly 2 points if he can catch up to the, or no, just 1 point if he can catch within 3 seconds of the Toe. But as you can see here, he hasn't actually caught up to the safety car just yet. And let's see if the safety car comes in this lap, as he's just about to catch it at the end of the final corner. And as you can see, he gets within close enough to the safety car pack, and that allows the safety car to come in, but quite late. So a bit unexpected from these drivers, obviously, who were maintaining their speed with the safety car. But it looks like it's been a good getaway from Team FIFA here, who was able to get the jump on every other driver. It looks like Paco has actually made the move on Chronic. I think that might have even been before the green flag running, but he hasn't got a penalty for it, so he's in P2 in this Grand Prix. Leighton, it looks like Coulter has moved all the way up into P4 and now battling it away with Leighton. It looks like Leighton, with the outside line for that turn, is able to maintain P4 in this race, with Coulter in P5 overtaking his teammate to get into that position. The man that started P12 in this race has been getting quite nice progress in this Grand Prix. Currently P5 with his teammate right behind him, but his teammate now putting him under pressure, and it looks like Coulter is not going to be able to hold that around the outside of turn 11. And yeah, it was really weird to see what happened on the safety car restart there, because it looked like Paco before the green flag running. I'm sure the stewards will have to look into that, really not. But Paco currently in P2 with Chronic right behind him in P3. Paco's teammate Leighton in P4 in this race. This could be some decent points for Alpine if they can keep it together for the next 6 laps. Because that would give them as you can see, everyone in the top 4. Team FIFA's teammate down in P9, Chronic's teammate DNFing, 7 Coulter in P5 and P6. Looks like Aston Martin having a pretty decent day so far. They could be ones to watch in the Constructors' title. Coulter obviously getting his first podium last season, I think it was at Austria. So he's obviously shown that he can put in a good performance, as it looks like Coulter actually losing a position there, going side by side with Literally Siggins into the turn 1 and 2 chicane, and Literally Siggins has gotten by for P6 in this Grand Prix now. So Coulter currently P7, losing that position to Literally Siggins, as they've lost 2.5 seconds to Seb up ahead, who's quite close to the back of Leighton at this stage of the Grand Prix. And these two will obviously be battling it out for P4. But the top 3 will all be battling it out for the win here at Jeddah. And we currently have 5.5 laps to go. So they need to start making moves soon enough if they want to win this Grand Prix. We'll have to see. Maybe they're saving up their energy and waiting to go for a push lap towards the end of the Grand Prix. Chronic probably not in the best position. Might want to pass Paco and get up into P2 and put himself in a better position in this Grand Prix. Obviously P2 being the better position, because you have the slipstream of the car ahead, which can help you defend from the car behind, but also help you overtake the car ahead. But it looks like they go side by side into the final turn, but Leighton able to defend the inside, but it's because Seb tries to go for the switchback, getting squeezed by Leighton there, and looks like Seb has so much more speed on the straight coming out of the final turn. Got a great exit because of that switchback, and is able to move himself up into P4 in this Grand Prix. Samuel Beach going side by side with Coulter into turn 1. Looks like Coulter is losing a lot of positions, as looks like Samuel Beach gets squeezed there at turn 2. They're still side by side going into turn 4 now, and it looks like Samuel Beach is going to back out of that move as the toe actually makes contact with the backbone. Dexy currently in P10 in this Grand Prix. It looks like the toe and Samuel Beach trying to go side by side. The toe trying to sneak past Samuel Beach there, but doesn't quite manage it, as you can see, following very closely going through the first sector. So Coulter maintains P7 for now, but it looks like he's losing quite a bit of pace in this Grand Prix, as his tyres are quite a bit more worn than Samuel Beach's, as it looks like Chronic has actually made the move on Paco there. Not sure if that was a mistake from Paco, but Chronic is now up into P2 and pushing T FIFA through these couple of turns, now coming into the final sectors. It looks like Paco has made a mistake. It's because he's lost his front wing. He's made a mistake at some point in the lap, and that has caused him to lose his front wing, so we will not be looking at a podium in this race, as Chronic now has a look to the outside at the final turn and isn't going to commit to that move. T FIFA taking a very tight line to stop any kind of switchback from Chronic there, and that's a shame to see. Paco deciding not to come into the pit lane. He's going to lose quite a bit of time, but probably not as much time as boxing at this stage of the Grand Prix. Coulter now right behind and in the slipstream of Literally Siggins. Is he looking for a move into turn 1? The answer is going to have to be no, and he's going to stay in the slipstream of Literally Siggins up ahead of him. So that's a shame to see, as Dexy actually retires from the session. Pulled into pit lane there to retire, even though he was in the top 10 and looking at a championship point. Has actually decided to retire from the race, which is a shame to see. But yeah, not sure what happened with Paco there. Must have made a mistake at some point in the middle sector. Could have even been in the same place where Dus Vessel had to retire. That's been a really tricky corner for a lot of drivers, and possibly where Paco lost his front wing, but he's now out of contention for any kind of podium. And now Seb and Leighton will be battling it out for the final spot on the podium, while T FIFA and Chronic continue their battle for the lead of the Grand Prix, with just 3.5 laps to go here at Jeddah. There's not too much time, and the overtakes need to be made now. As you can see there, Chronic getting up on the curve, unsettling the car just slightly, but using quite a bit of his ERS now. And will he be looking for a move into the final turn, just trying to offset T FIFA's line? And does he commit to that move? No, he tries to go for the switchback and get the better exit, and I think he has got that better exit. Hasn't gone for the switchback though. With the better exit, can he get a good run down to turn 1? It looked like he actually ran out of energy deployment coming onto the pit straight, but it looks like Seb is now trying to go around the outside, which turns for the inside for turn 2. Can he get past Chronic? Coming into turn 3 now, and next up is turn 4. Is Seb going to back out of this move? And yeah, it looks like he does back out of that move, and you can't really go side by side into turn 4. Definitely a very incident prone turn for going side by side. So Chronic maintains P2 for now, but Seb, with that 3-second time penalty, even if he overtakes Chronic, will still be in a net P3. So T FIFA still leading over Chronic coming onto lap 23, and I think Chronic he ran out of deployment at the end of lap 22 and wasn't able to use it on the pit straight. As you can see, they're really struggling with tire grip coming around turn 11, and that's allowed T FIFA to pull away just a little bit. As you can see, all three of those drivers, Chronic, Seb and Leighton, are really pushing the track limits, taking as much curve as possible, as Literally Siggins has now caught up to the back of Paco, who's had to cut the corner to avoid contact, and Coulter is now going to overtake him, along with Samuel Beach, who's going to be looking for the move on XD Paco, and as you see, just falling down the order. Now coming into the final turn, once again Chronic is using his tactic of just trying to offset T FIFA's line, and he's under quite a bit of pressure from Seb and Leighton behind. What kind of exit is it going to be for Chronic? It looks like T-Viva's got some great exit speed and straight line speed over Chronic, even though Chronic has the slipstream. And can he look for a move down to turn 1? No is the answer. He's just not close enough, as that looked like a lock-up there for Seb. Heading down into turn 1, Paco currently P8, but in a net P5 since they all have 3-second time penalties ahead of him. And so long as he can hold this position, as you can see, hasn't got a left end plate, so he's just been losing seconds a lap. And I'm sure he'd be very lucky to come out with P5 in this race. I'm very thankful as well. Currently able to keep up with Samuel Beach ahead of him, and defending from the toe behind. He tries to go down the inside into this double left-hander, and can he make this move? It looks like he actually does make that move on Paco, but it looks like he sacrificed himself to do that, because he's now gotten a 3-second time penalty from doing that. And he's now up to 12 seconds of time penalties, as you can see, with Samuel Beach being on 6 seconds. So we'll have to see where Paco ends up, but it's not going to be in the best of positions after losing his left end plate, losing him a lot of time on the in the corner, especially at such a high downforce track with all these high-speed corners. It probably hurt him the most at a track like this. Chronic now getting very close to the back of T-Viva, and he's actually pulled alongside here coming into the final turn to really offset his line, and tries to hold it around the outside, but that's not really going to work at the final turn. And this now gives Seb an opportunity to get a better exit than Chronic, coming down into turn 1, and has the outside line over Chronic. And will he be looking for a move? I think he will. And he tries to hold it around the outside, and it looks like he might actually get this move done. A bit compromise coming into turn 2 as they make contact there with each other's wheels banging. And it looks like Seb has actually managed, or no, Chronic has managed to defend that position, maintains P2 for now as we enter the final lap of the Grand Prix. Chronic running out of opportunities to overtake T-Viva, who's been running a really dominant race ever since lap 10, I think it was, when he gained the lead of the Grand Prix. So T-Viva has been running a really good race so far. All he has to do is defend for 2 more sectors, and then he will win the season opener and his first Grand Prix in ERA, which I'm sure he'd be absolutely ecstatic with. And let's see if he can defend going into these final few turns, and if Leighton can possibly get himself up onto the podium, or will Seb finish on the podium in Jeddah for the 2nd season in a row. We're now coming into the 3rd sector and the final sector of the Grand Prix, and can Chronic make any moves going into the final turn, which will most likely be his final opportunity. As you can see, they're sliding through that right-hander, try and carry as much speed as possible in these wet conditions. T-Viva holding that inside line, forcing Chronic to go to the outside. Can he hold this move around the outside on the final lap of the Grand Prix? Looks like broke a bit too late there, got a bit too early on the power. That's caused him to get some wheel spin. Chronic really defending the inside quite heavily, and it looks like T-Viva is going to come across the line to win the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix for McLaren and win the season opener here in Season 2 and his first race in ERA. Winning his first race in the ERA, with Chronic finishing P2 in his opening round of the season. I'm sure he'll be happy enough with that, as T-Viva had some great pace this Grand Prix. Seb is able to finish on the podium for Aston Martin in the season opener, and Leighton, in his first Grand Prix ever in ERA, is able to finish in P4. That's a great result from him. Coulter getting driver of the day, moving all the way from P12 to P6, if I'm not mistaken. And there's your podium with T-Viva winning the season opener. I'm sure he'll be very happy with that. Chronic finishing on his right side in P2. Grand Prix and the last place on the podium. And that was an absolutely exciting race. Really hope you enjoyed that. Remember to join the Discord server in the link in the description below if you want to get signed up and be involved in this racing like this. So Leighton comes P4. Literally Siggins is able to get P5 in his first Grand Prix. Coulter started P12 and finished P6. Samuel Beach finishing P7. Paco sadly finishing down in P8. Crutch Boy being disqualified for disconnecting. The Toe is able to finish in P9, and the Don, the last finisher in this race, rounds out the top 10. Dexy, Zayak, Dust Vessel, and H all sadly retiring from the session. But that is going to be it for the season opener of Season 2 VRA and the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. I hope to see you all next week at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday. And I definitely think it's going to be another exciting round and a very exciting championship. We'll have to see how it all plays out in the coming weeks. And goodbye.